The capital world of Zarenth was unlike any place Marcus Hale had ever seen. Giant towers of gleaming metal stretched into the sky, their surfaces shimmering with colors that seemed impossible under the planet's dim orange sun. Streets moved on their own, guided by invisible energy, carrying beings of countless shapes and sizes to and from places Marcus could barely name. Above it all, perched in the center of the city, rose the palace of the alien queen Nalira. Its spires curved like the wings of some enormous cosmic bird, and from a distance the palace seemed alive, breathing with the light of the city itself. Marcus had been trained for this moment for years, yet as he stood in the outer courtyard, his heart beat faster than it had ever done in any battle. His mission was simple on paper: establish a peaceful trade agreement between humans and the alien kingdom. In practice, it was impossible. Nalira was a figure of legends across the galaxy. Entire fleets had tried to negotiate with her. Entire armies had trembled before her presence, and according to the reports, none had dared touch her. Marcus adjusted his uniform, checking the communicator at his wrist. The alien escorts approaching him were tall and thin, their skin iridescent like polished metal, eyes sharp and unblinking. They moved with the elegance of predators, silent and precise. Their leader, a being named Thalor, spoke with a voice that seemed to echo in Marcus's mind. "You will enter the palace," Thalor said. "You will approach the queen. You will speak only when she allows. You will not touch her. No one touches the queen." Marcus nodded, though the words did little to calm his nerves. "Understood," he said. But in the back of his mind he wondered, what if the queen tested him? What if she expected something no human had ever dared to do? The grand doors of the palace opened silently, revealing a hall so vast that Marcus felt he could lose himself in it. Crystals floated in the air, casting light that shifted in patterns he couldn't follow. Alien courtiers moved like shadows, their long limbs bending in ways that made Marcus dizzy. And at the far end of the hall, on a dais of polished obsidian, sat Nalira herself. She was more beautiful and terrifying than any story had suggested. Her skin was a deep silver with patterns that shimmered when she moved. Her eyes were amber, and they seemed to pierce Marcus's soul, reading every thought, every fear, every hidden intention. She sat upon a throne that was more a piece of living architecture than furniture, curved and flowing, as if grown rather than built. Marcus took a careful step forward. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Every alien, every guard, every advisor watched him. Even the air felt heavier, charged with some unspoken rule of power. And yet Marcus did not flinch. He remembered his training, his people, the countless times humans had faced impossible odds and prevailed. Nalira's voice cut through the silence. It was not loud, but it carried across the hall, commanding attention. "Human," she said, "you are far from your world. Speak." Marcus bowed his head slightly, the gesture of respect universal enough to convey his intentions. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "I come on behalf of humanity, seeking dialogue and understanding. We wish to establish trade, knowledge exchange, and mutual respect between our species." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. No human had ever spoken in the Queen's presence before, let alone approached her so directly. Nalira's eyes narrowed, studying him closely. "And why," she asked, "should I trust your kind? You are known for unpredictability, for daring to challenge forces far greater than yourselves. Why come here unarmed and expect to survive?" Marcus swallowed, but he did not hesitate. "Because humans do not always rely on fear or force. We rely on understanding, on reason, and sometimes on courage." There was a pause, a tension that pressed against his chest. Then Nalira tilted her head slightly, a movement so slight it almost escaped notice, yet carried immense weight. "Courage," she repeated, "a rare trait among all beings. But courage alone does not protect you." Marcus stepped closer, careful to maintain proper protocol but ignoring the invisible bubble of fear that seemed to surround the queen. He noticed a small ceremonial crystal lying near her throne, a delicate object carved with symbols Marcus did not recognize. As he watched, the crystal slipped from the edge of the dais and began to fall. Time slowed. Every alien in the room held its breath. Not one moved. The crystal clinked softly against the floor, and Marcus, acting on instinct, reached down and picked it up. He held it out to her, careful, steady, confident. The room froze. The guards, the courtiers, even the queen herself stopped breathing. All eyes were on Marcus. Nalira's amber gaze locked onto him, For the first time in countless generations, someone had dared to touch something near her, to cross the invisible barrier that no one had ever crossed. Marcus held the crystal without hesitation, extending his arm fully until it was level with her throne. "Your Highness," he said, voice steady, "I believe this belongs to you." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then slowly, Nalira reached out and took the crystal from his hands. Her touch was colder than Marcus expected, but not hostile. Instead, it was deliberate, studying, testing. Her eyes met his. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she spoke, her tone curious rather than commanding. "You touch without fear. You do not flinch, yet you respect." "Why?" Marcus met her gaze evenly. "Because respect does not require fear, and fear does not always command loyalty. Sometimes it is courage and understanding that matter more." A ripple ran through the room, subtle but undeniable. The courtiers whispered to each other, confused, astonished. No human had ever dared speak to the queen in such a manner, let alone act with such confidence. Nalira studied him longer than Marcus thought possible. She asked questions, not about trade, not about diplomacy, but about humanity itself. She wanted to know why humans risked so much, why they valued life and cooperation alongside strength, and how they measured courage. Marcus answered honestly, recounting tales of human explorers, inventors, soldiers, and scientists. Stories of impossible odds overcome by will and intelligence, stories of humans protecting one another, even when it cost them dearly. Hours passed as they spoke, the court watching silently. Marcus learned that touching the queen was more than taboo. It was a test of character. For centuries, only those who could combine bravery, respect, and quick thinking had ever survived such encounters. Most failed, some disappeared, and the rest were dismissed from the presence of the queen forever. By the end of the day, Marcus had not only survived, but gained something extraordinary: Nalira's curiosity. She studied him as one studies a rare specimen, intrigued by his lack of fear, his calm demeanor, and his willingness to act decisively. But the reprieve was brief. As Marcus prepared to leave the audience hall, an alert rang through the palace. The distant sensors had detected a fleet, massive, aggressive, and headed straight for Zarenth. Entire cities would be in danger if the fleet arrived unchecked. The Queen's guards moved with unprecedented urgency, yet the situation was clear. Conventional tactics might fail. Marcus's mind raced. He had been trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and survival in hostile territories, but never for commanding alien fleets or preparing planets for war. Yet he had learned enough about Nalira's people, their technology, and their battle strategies during his audience to make an educated guess. He knew that if he wanted to help, he would need to act quickly and decisively. That evening, in the quiet of his quarters, Marcus reviewed everything he had seen and learned. He realized that the key to defending Zarenth might not lie in the alien technology alone, nor in the military might of the Queen's army. It might lie in something far simpler: trust. The trust he had begun to build with Nalira, through a single act of courage, a single touch, might be the difference between victory and annihilation. He looked out at the city below, lights shimmering against the darkening sky. Somewhere in the palace, Nalira was watching him. He could feel her curiosity, her cautious respect. He knew that the coming battle would test every skill, every instinct he had. But for the first time, he felt a strange confidence. He would not be just another envoy. He would not be just another human dismissed by legend and fear. He would stand beside the Queen if necessary and prove that humanity was more than fragile flesh and fragile nerves. Humanity was bold, resourceful, and unafraid when the situation demanded courage. And somewhere deep inside, Marcus realized something extraordinary. The Queen herself, untouchable and feared by all, had already started to see him not as a human, but as an ally. The night deepened over Zarenth, stars glittering coldly in the sky. The distant rumble of the incoming fleet could already be felt, like the growl of a storm before the first lightning strikes. Marcus slept lightly that night, ready for what was to come, knowing that the choices he made in the coming hours could change the course of not just the planet, but the galaxy itself. He had laid a hand on the untouchable alien queen, and now he would have to prove that human courage was not just a word, but a force strong enough to stand beside legends. The morning light of Zarenth broke over the city in streaks of gold and orange. casting long shadows across the towering spires. Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the Queen's command chamber, watching the alien fleet assemble in orbit. Each ship gleamed with a precision that spoke of centuries of advanced engineering, yet Marcus could feel the tension in the air. This was no ordinary battle. It was a test of strategy, courage, and trust between two very different species. Nalira approached silently, her silver skin reflecting the sunlight like liquid metal. Her amber eyes held the same piercing curiosity they had the first day Marcus had touched the ceremonial crystal. "You slept lightly," she observed, her voice carrying without raising a note. "I expected more fear. Humans are supposed to tremble in the presence of power." Marcus shook his head. "Fear doesn't help us win battles," he said. "It slows us down, makes us hesitate. We survive by thinking, acting, and trusting those we fight with, even if they are unlike us." Nalira considered this, tilting her head slightly. "Trusting's a dangerous concept. Yet you demonstrate it without hesitation. You touch me, speak freely, and now you command my attention in ways no alien has dared." Marcus felt a small spark of pride, but he did not let it distract him. "We don't have time for praise," he said. "The fleet is close, and your people need a plan that can change the outcome." Nalira nodded, her usual regal composure returning. She gestured to a holographic display of the incoming enemy fleet. Dozens of ships, dark and angular, moved with deliberate aggression. "They are stronger than any enemy we have faced in recent centuries. Conventional defense alone will not stop them." "Your plan?" Marcus pointed to gaps in the formation, weak points between the enemy ships. "Your fleet is strong but predictable. If we can coordinate small squadrons to strike at multiple points at once, we can force their formation apart. And if we do it fast, we can create confusion before they realize what's happening." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "And you propose that I trust you with the execution of this plan?" Marcus nodded. "Not just trust. Work with me. Let me guide part of the fleet from here with you. We act together." For a long moment, Nalira studied him. No alien had ever suggested direct collaboration with her in the midst of a crisis. Most would have followed orders blindly, leaving her to act alone. But Marcus's courage and clarity had earned her attention. Finally, she spoke. "Very well. We shall test your strategy, but one wrong move and your life ends here." Marcus simply nodded. Understood. They began coordinating. Marcus learned quickly to interpret the alien communication methods, visual signals, gestures, and subtle pulses of energy that passed between ships. Nalira, in turn, adapted to his human methods, quick verbal commands, pointing and reasoning through probabilities. Together they became an unexpected team, a human and the alien queen working in ways neither species had tried before. As the battle began, the enemy fleet moved with deadly precision. Their weapons glowed like molten stars firing across space, but Marcus's instincts, combined with his observations of alien tactics, allowed him to predict their next moves. He instructed squadrons to break formation, using the Queen's ships as both shields and strategic decoys. Explosions erupted in the void, flashes of light reflecting on Marcus's face as he watched the battle unfold. The alien courtiers who had once whispered nervously at the Queen's side now looked on with amazement as Marcus and Nalira's strategy began to work. Enemy ships faltered, their formation disrupted by attacks they had not anticipated. At one critical moment, a massive enemy dreadnought moved to strike the heart of Zarinth's city. Marcus knew that conventional weapons would take too long. He calculated the odds, spoke quickly, and Nalira immediately adjusted the fleet's positioning. Together, they funneled the dreadnought into a narrow passage between asteroid fields. The enemy ship became trapped, and with precise strikes, it was neutralized before it could reach the city. The rest of the fleet wavered, confusion spreading among their ranks. Marcus took the opportunity to send targeted commands, breaking their cohesion further. Nalira's voice guided her flagship with unmatched precision, while Marcus coordinated human-inspired maneuvers that no alien would have attempted alone. Hours passed in a blur of lights, explosions, and rapid decisions. Marcus felt exhaustion creeping in, but he ignored it, knowing the survival of millions depended on his clarity and courage. At one point, a warning flashed across the display. A small squadron of enemy ships had broken through the outer defenses and were heading directly toward the palace. Without hesitation, Marcus ran to the tactical console, his hands moving with practiced precision, issuing orders that guided interceptor ships to meet the threat head-on. The enemy squadron was destroyed, leaving a trail of debris against the backdrop of stars. Nalira's eyes met his, and for the first time a small smile touched her lips. "You are remarkable," she said softly. "Not in the way others fear me, but in the way you see the possibilities of action rather than the barriers of tradition." Marcus let out a small breath, relief mixing with pride. "We've done well, but the fight isn't over. They may retreat, but they will return. We have to show them that Zarenth is not to be underestimated." As the last of the enemy ships either fled or were destroyed, Marcus and Nalira coordinated a final strike, ensuring that the fleet would be too weakened to mount another attack for years. When the battle ended, silence fell over the palace. The city below was intact, the citizens safe, and the alien fleet intact and ready to defend again. The courtiers and guards slowly gathered around, staring at Marcus in disbelief. The human had not only survived the Queen's court, but had played a critical role in saving the planet. Whispers of astonishment ran through the hall. No human had ever been so close to Nalira, let alone shared command during battle. Nalira rose from her throne, walking gracefully toward Marcus. She stopped just a step away, her amber eyes examining him as if seeing him for the first time. "You have changed something today," she said. "Not only the outcome of the battle, but the way I view courage and trust. You have acted where others would hesitate. You have dared where others would fear." Marcus bowed slightly. "It was necessary," he said, "and I could not have done it without learning from you. Without your knowledge and your command, none of this would have been possible." Nalira considered him for a moment, then extended a hand. Not a test, not a challenge, but a gesture of recognition. Marcus reached out and took it, feeling a strange connection, a bond forged not only through survival but through mutual respect and cooperation. For a moment the room felt lighter, the centuries of fear and protocol lifted by a simple act of trust. The courtiers watched in silence, slowly realizing that the human had proven something extraordinary. Nalira's hands, once untouchable, had now been met with courage that surpassed legend. The message was clear. Humans were not fragile, nor were they predictable. They were capable of daring, of ingenuity, and of acts that could change the course of entire worlds. Over the following days, Marcus worked closely with the Queen, helping to rebuild defenses, coordinate fleets, and establish new protocols that incorporated human insights. Alien diplomats who had once whispered that the human was reckless now came to him for guidance, fascinated by his approach. Nalira herself began to trust him in ways few could imagine. She allowed him to accompany her in public ceremonies, a human beside the untouchable alien queen. Citizens and visitors alike stared in awe, some in disbelief. The act of a human standing shoulder to shoulder with Nalira had shifted perceptions across the galaxy. And yet Marcus remained humble. He did not seek glory or titles. He understood that the victory was shared, a product of human courage combined with alien knowledge. In his quiet moments, he reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought him here. To this palace beside this queen, in a place where myths came alive and legends could be rewritten by a single daring human touch. At night, as the city of Zarenth glittered beneath the alien moons, Marcus looked out over the palace balcony. Somewhere, deep in the shadows of the spires, he could feel Nalira watching him, her gaze a mixture of curiosity, respect, and perhaps the first hint of something deeper, a recognition that humans could change not only battles but entire worlds. Marcus understood then that his journey had only begun. Humanity had earned a place in this part of the galaxy, not through brute force alone but through courage, trust, and the willingness to act where others would hesitate. The legend of the human who dared to touch the alien queen would spread. But for Marcus, the greatest reward was knowing that he had proven what humans could achieve when they believed in themselves, and in the bonds they could form, even with the untouchable and unimaginable. And somewhere, in the palace that stretched to the stars, the alien queen smiled. She had feared for centuries that no being could ever match her mind, her power, or her presence. Yet here was a human, unexpected, unpredictable, and bold, who had changed the course of history simply by daring to act. For the first time, Nalira saw not only the world through the eyes of a human, but also the potential of a future where humans and aliens could stand together, side by side, shaping a galaxy that had once seemed beyond reach. And Marcus, standing quietly beside her, understood that he had done more than